about BASIC. So, if you guys hear about BASIC, what comes to your mind, or what do you guys think about when you hear the word BASIC? Pumpkin spice latte? Where? Why suddenly pumpkin spice latte? 10 print. Okay, I think that's probably. Don't give it away. Q basic. What is Q basic? Basic. Sound like your life. Normies. Simple. GW basic. What the heck is that? Visual basic. Ah. I just think back to 2nd grade and saw gorillas and nibble written in Q basic. Oh really? That's a thing? What the hell is Patagonia vest and Albert? Oh wait, isn't that clothes? Let's read about what BASIC is, guys. So, BASIC is beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. Wow, good for you for knowing that. That's great. Is a family of general purpose, oh my god, high-level programming language designed for ease of use. The original version was created by John John Kemeny and Tom Kurt at Dartmouth College in 1964. It's a very old language. I mean, I guess if you look at this, it's super old. They wanted to enable students in non-scientific fields to use computers. This is where the nerdiness came from then. Kemeny. One of the first language? So at the time, nearly all computers required writing custom software, which only scientists and mathematicians tend to learn. So this actually, guys, ties back to, you know, the fact that we talked about programmers being nerds, is that only scientists and mathematicians knew this, so they needed a bridge to connect non-programmers to programmers. In addition to the programming language, Kemeny and Kurtz developed Dartmouth time-sharing system, which allowed multiple users to edit and run basic programs simultaneously on remote terminals. This general model became very popular on many computer systems like the PDP-11 and Data General Nova in the late 1960s and the early 1970s. Who's familiar with this area? Because this is really long time ago. Hewlett-Packard produced an entire computer line for this method of operation, introducing the HP 2000 series in the late 1960s and continuing sales in the 1980s. Many early video games trace their history to one of these versions of BASIC. So this is like grandpa. This is like great grandpa. This is like Neanderthal of programming then. If this is this old. The emergence of microcomputers in the mid-1970s led to the development of multiple BASIC dialects, including Microsoft BASIC in 1975. Due to the tiny main memory available on these machines, often 4K. 4KB. What is 4KB here? A variety of tiny BASIC dialect was also created. BASIC was available for almost any system of the era and became the de facto programming language for home computer system that emerged in the late 1970s. So, this was the language. Kilobyte is 4 kilobytes. Oh. These PCs also almost always had a BASIC interpreter installed by default, often in the machine's firmware or sometimes on a ROM cartridge. BASIC declined in popularity in 1990s as more powerful microcomputers came to market and programming languages with advanced features such as Pascal and C became tenable. In 1991, Microsoft released Visual Basic. Oh, wait, I've heard about Visual Basic. The Excel coding is Visual Basic. Comes from Basic? Oh, mind-blowing. Combining an updated version of Basic with a visual forms builder. This reignited use of the language, and VB remained a major programming language in the form of VBA and VB.NET. So VBA, actually I used it in Excel. But this has a history from BASIC. I don't know. So the origin, John Kemeny was the math department chairman at Dartmouth College, based largely on his reputation as an innovator in math teaching. In 1959, the school won an Alfred Solon Foundation Award for $500,000 to build a new department building. Wow. He must really love math. 진짜 이거는 진짜 love math person이야. So Thomas Kurtz had joined the department in 1956, and from the 1960s, Kemeny and Kurt agreed on the need for programming literacy among students outside the traditional STEM field. Really? Kemeny later noted that our version was that every student on campus should have access to a computer, and any faculty member should be able to use a computer in the classroom whenever appropriate. It was as simple as that. So what is this supposed to do? So is this supposed to work a computer, or people can program using basic language? Because it sounds like he wanted to make people use computers, but that basic is programming, right? This is a bit confusing. Kemeny and Kurt had made 2 previous experiments with simplified language. Oh my god, that's so long. And dope. Guys, dope is actually a slang. So back then, computers didn't do anything unless you told them to do something. And to tell them to do something, you had to be a scientist or mathematician. So for people to use normal computers, they would be using BASIC. So because in my mind, I'm thinking about Windows layout and everything. So I was like, you could still click on stuff and, but I guess if you wanted to use it, you had to type in. It kind of looks like the CMD, right? Okay. So these did not progress past a single freshman class. New experiments using Fortran and ALGOL maybe followed, but Kurtz concluded these languages were too tricky for what they desired. As Kurt noticed, Fortran had numerous oddly formed commands. Notably, an almost impossible to memorize convention for specifying a loop. Do 100 I equal 1, 10, 2. Is it 1, 10, 2 or 1, 2, 10? 이런 식으로. And is the comma after the line number required or not? So there are lots of questions about Fortran programming. Moreover, the lack of any sort of immediate feedback was a key problem. The machines of the era used batch processing and took long time to complete a run of a program. While Kurtz was visiting MIT, John McCarthy suggested that time sharing offered a solution. Single machine could divide up its processing time among many users, giving them the illusion of having a slow computer to themselves. Small programs would return results in a few seconds. This led to increasing interest in a system using time sharing and a new language specified for use by non-STEM students. So time sharing to reduce the return time of the method so that new non-STEM field can use it. So smart. Kemeny wrote the first version of BASIC, the acronym BASIC, come from the name of an unpublished paper by Thomas Kurtz. The new language was heavily patterned on Fortran 2 statement where 1 to a line numbers were used to indicate the target of a loop of loops and branches, and many of the commands were similar or identical to Fortran. However, the syntax was changed wherever it could be improved. For instance, the difficult to remember do loop was replaced by the much easier to remember for I equal 1 to 10 step 2. Isn't this hard? 나는 어려운데. For the line number used in the do was instead indicated by the next I. And I guess they had the if statement for the Fortran became if I equal 5, then go to 100. Okay, maybe this isn't that bad. Anyways, these changes made the language much less idiosyncratic while still having an overall structure and feel similar to the original Fortran. Project received 300,000 grant from the National Science Foundation, which was used to purchase a GE225 computer. Wow. And yada yada yada. A team of a dozen undergrads worked on the project for about a year, writing both the DTSS system and the BASIC compiler. The first version BASIC language was released in May 1st, 1964. Who was born in this time? 1964, guys. That's very, very old. Initially, BASIC concentrated on supporting straightforward mathematical work with matrix arithmetic support from its initial implementation as a batch language, a character string functionality being added by 1965. Usage in the university rapidly expanded, requiring the main CPU to be replaced by the GE235. And still later by a GE635. Wanting use of the language to become widespread, its designers made the compiler available free of charge. That's good. That's good that it's free. In the 1960s, software became a chargeable commodity. Until then, it was provided without charge as a service with the very expensive computers, usually available only to lease. They also made it available to high school students in the Hanover, New Hampshire area and regionally throughout New England. Wow. So then in the following years, as other dialect of BASIC appeared, Kemeny and Kurt's original BASIC dialect became known as Dartmouth BASIC. And then New Hampshire recognized the accomplishment in 1919 when it erected a highway historical marker in Hanover describing the creation of the first user-friendly programming language. Interesting. So this is like really the grandpa of programming language. Or I guess it's more like, what's that? Oh, I keep forgetting the name of that one app that's been used to analyze graphs, but you don't have to program it, you can just drag and click. And it's being used by lots of business people. C is the grandpa, but I think this is older than C. Because C came after this, it seems like. Oh. But yeah, maybe C is the grandpa of like the programming language for programmers, but this is more like programming language for non-programmer grandpa version. Tableau, thank you. Yeah, so this may be like grandpa for Tableau. Tableau's grandpa. great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, right? So. Spread on time-sharing service. The emergence of BASIC took place as part of a wider movement towards time-sharing system. So this is what made BASIC possible from the MIT OFARs, right? First conceptualized during the late 1950s, the idea became so dominant in the computer industry by the early 1960s that its proponents were speaking of a future in which users would buy time on the computer, much the same way that the average household buys power and water from utility companies. So this made time purchasable? This buy time? 뭔 뜻이야? So GE, having worked on the Dartmouth project, wrote their own underlying operating system and launched on an online time-sharing system known as Mark I. It featured BASIC as one of its primary selling points. Other companies in the emerging field quickly followed suit. Yada yada yada, companies made that. Even IBM eventually joined the club too. So although time-sharing service with BASIC were successful for a time, the widespread success predicted earlier was not to be. The emergence of mini computers during the same period, and especially low-cost microcomputers in the mid-1970s, allowed anyone to purchase and run their own system, rather than buying online time, which was typically billed at $1 per minute? That's so expensive. They figured computers would always be too big and too expensive for people to have their own. Computers would be the size of a room back then. That is so expensive. In the old days, users had to lease time on mainframe computers to run their own program. AWS is billed by the minute nowadays as well. Oh, really? But that's cloud, right? Oh, I guess that's the same idea though. Oh, 그러네. Because the online time can also equal cloud. Yeah, same concept. Isn't this so expensive then? Oh, 비싼데? So because it was so big, now they got the spread of mini computers. Here it is. BASIC, by its very natural nature of being small, was naturally suited to porting to the microcomputer market, which was emerging at the same time as the time-sharing service. These machines had a very small main memory. So kind of laptop? $1 in 1970s are much more expensive? True. Compared to how much $1 means today. But mini computers are they saying laptop or like maybe small desktop computer at this time? Perhaps a little as 4 kilobyte in modern terminology. So this picture, this is a mini computer. 이게 컴퓨터야? Is this computer? So this is computer. 이게 this thingy. So crazy. That's a computer? And that's mini? Wow. Think about how much it has changed from that time to now. The hard drive. So this might be the hard drive then. 이게 hard drive일 수도 있겠다. Oh wait, no, hard drive is inside the computer. Sorry guys, let me show you guys the picture. $1, $7.31. Mini cause it doesn't take up the entire room이라서 미니야. This is the computer, guys. Can you guys believe it? So a particularly important example was HP Time-Shared BASIC, which, like the original Dartmouth system, used two computers working together to implement a time-sharing system. Na 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 na. So then the DEC. The leader in the mini computer space since the mid-1960s had initially ignored BASIC. This was due to their work with Rand Corporation, who had purchased a PDP-6 to run their JOS maybe language, which was conceptually very similar to BASIC. So I guess the mini computer companies were like, hey, we're not using BASIC. You guys suck because we have a better one. This led DEC to introduce a smaller, cleaned up version of JOS known as Focal, which they heavily promoted in the late 1960s. However, with time-sharing system widely offering BASIC and all of their competition in the microcomputer space doing the same, DEC's customer was clamoring for BASIC. 그래, whatever you want, you have to get it. After managing repeatedly ignored their pleas. 맞지 이거. David took it upon himself to buy a BASIC for the PDP-8, and it became a major success in the education market. So then Focal and JOS had been forgotten, and BASIC had become almost universal in the mini computer market. So wow, so BASIC is very, 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 very important. So during this period, a number of simple text-based games were written in BASIC, most notably Star Trek. Oh, really? He later collected a number of these into book form, 101 Basic Computer Games, published in 1973. During the same period, Al was involved in the creation of a small computer for education use, an early personal computer. So this early personal computer is now desktop size? Maybe, I'm guessing. When management refused to support the concept, Al left DEC in 1974 to found the seminal computer magazine Creative Computing. This book remained popular and was republished on several occasions. Now, explosive growth on the home computer era. 이게 history가 되게 많다. Whoa, look at this history, guys. What the? What? Honey. Even Wikipedia has died. Oh, look! Wikipedia died. 미쳤다. So, explosive growth, guys. I'll kind of skim through it. If you guys are really interested, read more in depth. But since it's a very long history, they already have so much about BASIC. So the introduction of the first microcomputer was in the mid-1970s. And then it started growing big. It had the advantage that it was fairly well known to the young designers and computer hobbyists who took an interest in microcomputers, many of whom had seen BASIC on minis or mainframes. Despite, oh my god, sorry Dutch people, but I can't pronounce his name. It's a famous judgment in 1975 saying it is practically impossible to teach good programming to students that have had a prior exposure to BASIC. As potential programmers, they are mentally mutilated beyond hope of regeneration. Oh, BASIC was one of the few languages that was both high level enough to be usable by those without training and small enough to fit into microcomputers of the day, making it the de facto standard programming language on early microcomputers. So this was super important. And then the first version of microcomputer version was co-written by Bill Gates for their newly formed company, Microsoft. So even BASIC is before Microsoft, guys. This was released by MIT in punch tape format for the Altair 8800 shortly after the machine itself, immediately cementing BASIC as the primary language of early microcomputers. No, I don't know what that is. Partially in response to Gates' letter and partially to make an even smaller BASIC that would run usefully on 4 KB machines, Bob urged Dennis to write their own variation of the language. How to design and implement a stripped-down version of an interpreter for the BASIC language was covered in articles by Ellison in the first 3 quarterly issues of the People Company, Computer Company newsletter. Microsoft, by this time Microsoft ported their interpreter for the MOS 6502, which quickly became one of the most popular microprocessor of the 8-bit era. And So then, as it got popular, Computer Magazine published complete source code in BASIC for video games, utilities, and other programs. So it's basically talking about, because of BASIC, lots of things have been created, like Microsoft and different games and everything super interested. BASIC did not encourage good programming structure. So many people never learned efficient techniques. So maybe that's the downfall or the con of using BASIC. And then talking about the IBM and the compatibilities with BASIC and IBM. Now later came Visual Basic in 1991, where Microsoft created it. An evolutionary development of Quick Basic, the QBasic. It included constructs from that language such as block-structured control statements, parameterized. What the heck? This word is so hard for some reason. Parameterized. Parameterized subroutines and optional static typing, as well as object-oriented constructs from other languages such as with and for each. The language retained some compatibilities with its predecessors, such as the DIM keyboard for declarations, Go sub return statement, and optional line numbers, which could be used to locate errors. So this was used for Microsoft Excel, a spreadsheet program, and To the surprise of many at Microsoft, who still initially marketed it as a language for hobbyists, the language came into widespread use for small custom business application. This is so crazy. Parameterized. Oh, thanks, Jetty. Hi, Sparta. So that's how Visual Basic came from. So crazy. So crazy. And here's a post-1990 version. So it actually became more of what we're used to today. An example of Mono Basic, and then OpenOffice.org Basic and Gamba Basic. Several web-based simple basic interpreter also now exist, such as Microsoft Small Basic. And then I guess there's now available for Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And even there's variant of BASIC are available on graphing and otherwise programmable calculators. So you could even use BASIC on your calculator too. 미쳤다. The legacy is that the ubiquity of basic interpreters on personal computers was such that textbook once included simple try it in basic exercise that encouraged students to experiment with mathematical and computational concepts on classroom or home computers. Popular computer magazines of the day typically included type-in programs. And then even futurist and sci-fi writer David Brin mourned the loss of ubiquitous basic in the 2006 Salon article, as have others who first used computers during this era. So even Dartmouth College celebrated the 50th anniversary of basic language with a day of events on April 30th, 2014. A short documentary film was produced for the event. So basic is actually a life-changing event, guys. Some of the syntax for basic is let data read, restore, dim, and then for to next, while, when. Oh, what's when? Do loop. Go to, and then go sub. Oh, wait, maybe we need go sub. I like this. We should use this syntax. Go sub. Go sub Jinri. List, print, input, tab, blah 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 blah. So many of them. There's also data types and variables about it. Examples are unstructured basic. There's the 10. Oh, I guess this is the indicator of what's the line, right? So print hello world 20n. That's all to say the hello world. And then you could even make it an infinite loop. Aha, because you go print hello world and then you go back to 10. So it'll be hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world, hello world until you do the end, right? Even this, you can create it into text. So what's your name? And then hello use thing, because that's what you're inputting, and then you'll print. 오, 이거 괜찮은데? So there's a standard. And that's all of basic. Wow, that was long, guys. That was long. But conclusion. I think we'll just have one line conclusion, guys. Conclusion of basic is that grandpa of language, or I guess trendsetter, or what's maybe a better definition of what basic was. I was about to say what grandpa is, but basic, or I guess ancestor, first widely adopted. I guess so, because this was even older than C, guys. First attempt at programming for the masses. Oh, I like that one too. So many good conclusions out there, but I guess this is how programming, like, basic was what allowed people to know what a programmer does, I guess. Easy version of programming for me, because it was very simple. When I read the syntax, it made sense as a non-programmer. So I guess that's all for basic. That was a long history, but it's shocking for me that Visual Basic and Basic are connecting the dots. So yeah, that's all. I hope you guys enjoyed today's basic comment or basic review, and you guys got to learn something about it. For me, I guess Microsoft was created before basic, which is kind of crazy. But if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask. But other than that, thank you.